Good evening. Can you hear me in this microphone? Closer? Yeah, is that better? I don't like the microphone, but thank you. I have notes. One of the things I will say is I have about a minute of material to cover here, but I have like a lot of notes, which I've have multiple drafts of those notes because that is how that is my process, right? Most important, or first off, thank you for coming. It's so good to see so many of you here. So we're really thrilled to be on our second annual event. This is the Creative Writing Club and the Zephyr Club, and it's a celebration of creative writing. We had our first event last year right around this time, and it's become kind of a tradition. So thank you for joining us again. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jesse Miller. I'm a professor of writing here, and I'm also the advisor for the amazing Creative Writing Club. And I'm sure Anjana will talk more about that in a minute. I want to sort of set the stage for us here, what we're in store for. So tonight we have poets and writers that have published in the most recent issue of the Zephyr, the UNE's literary artistic journal, and they're going to be sharing original works with us. I think ultimately we're both in for a treat, but we're also in for something I think that's really, really vital, which is, it's a celebration of, in this case, the printed word, but it's also a celebration of the spoken word, right? Because we're going to be sharing those aloud with us. So this is going to be a lot of fun. I want to recognize, I think it's going to be really important to point out the tremendous amount of work to kind of get all of this together, or get all this off the ground. Elizabeth, who is the president, I have it in my notes here, the president of Zephyr, and Anjana, who is the vice president of the Creative Writing Club. And as well as many others who are involved in that club have, really been putting in a lot of work to get this event to you. And I just, I'm so happy to be part of all of that energy. And ultimately, I'm really glad that we can, shine a spotlight here on the creative writing community that's at UNE. I mean, this is a pretty important moment to shine some light on that. So check out the light. It's bright. Not literally. That's why it's a metaphor. Anyway, before we sort of get into it, Anjana and Elizabeth are going to do some co-emceeing, which is going to be pretty neat. So you'll see them sort of popping up. I want to turn this over to my colleague, Professor Susan McHugh, who has some things to say and share with us. Thanks.
Thank you, Jesse, and thank you, Anjana and Elizabeth, for leading this wonderful event organizing. And thank you, everyone, for showing up. I mean, this wouldn't be an event if it weren't for all of you, especially those of you who have the courage to share your wonderful creative work. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Susan McHugh. I'm professor of English here at UNE. I've been the advisor to Zephyr for 20 years. Whoa! And it is hands down my favorite part of my job. So I also just, as someone who isn't a creative writer like Professor Miller, I am a literary critic, a cultural historian. I'm here to give you a little bit of history that way too. When the co-founders of the journal first started here, they perceived a really big need, a really big hole in our community for an outlet for the tremendous creative work that people were doing on their own, in a dark corner, alone, not sharing it with anybody, finding tremendous personal satisfaction in it, but not getting the joy of sharing it, not getting the joy of other people getting jazzed up about it. So this event has just, to me, carried forward that momentum. in a really beautiful and synergistic way with the Creative Writing Club, which is long overdue on campus, but also I think just the way it's grown from students wanting it, bringing it together, making it your own is really important too. And it's just guaranteed, just as Zephyr came together on its own, to create a future for itself that way. So anytime anyone wants to hear about old stories and things that happened in the past, I'm your gal for that. I know, I'm gonna stop, not gonna go there now. We're here for now, we're here for the future. And looking into the future, I just wanted to give everyone a heads up that you can submit your work to Zephyr again. If you didn't get around to it yet, we'll be opening out that call for submissions through all the channels as soon as possible. I'm never too early to submit. Sometimes it's too late, but it isn't too late because there's always the next year. So remember that Zephyr's there for you. Tonight we're celebrating creative writing, but artwork is also published in Zephyr, as I'm sure you'll notice if you pick up some copies and flip through, take them home, share them with people. Also, just one last detail, that if you have a friend who's interested in submitting, have a relative, they're all eligible to submit too. So we're looking for you to turn some arms, lean on folks, push them forward. Sometimes we need nudges, they need nudges. Please do that work for us as well. If you want to get involved with either of these clubs, please talk to these folks after the event. We'll be hanging out and happy to chat. So with that, I'm handing it over to one of you. Is it Elizabeth? Okay, and I will.
All right, thank you. Hi, everybody. We're very excited to have you all here tonight. And for this reading event, we'll be having several people from both Creative Writing Club and from Zephyr reading their own work, and also submissions that we got for the 22nd edition, this most recent one. And as Professor Miku said, we'll soon be accepting submissions for the 23rd edition, which will be published in the spring. So very excited about that. And now Anjana.
Hi, I'm Anjana. I'm Vice President of Creative Writing Club. I did want to mention that our President and Secretary, Beanie Lowry and Henry Sylvester, respectively, are studying abroad in Morocco, but they did still have a great contribution to this club and to this event, so a quick thank you to them. Before we begin, I just wanted to say that in addition to the Zephyr publications, we also have creative writing writers speaking and reading, and they're reading original works. Some house rules before we begin. Please put your phones on silent for the respect of the readers and writers. If you need to leave in between the pieces, please do so. Or if you need to leave, please do so in between the pieces as to not distract the presenters. We do have the lovely Lee Cody. Very big thank you to him for he's recording this event. It's live streamed and will be posted on the UNE YouTube page. So please refrain from walking in this back corner where the camera is. Thanks, Lee. And we also want to just put out that writing, like life, is unpredictable. Art is unpredictable. So I just want to give a quick note of adult language and some mature content that may be present going forward. And I think we can begin. And Elizabeth, do you have anything else?
No, yep, go right ahead.
All right, perfect. We'd first like to introduce Faye.
Hi, everybody. Everyone hear me okay? All right. I am here to read to you a couple pieces from Zephyr. I ask you hold your applause until I'm done reading because it will be very distracting. I know you're all going to love it, so just really try and sit on your hands for me. All right. So my first piece for you all is going to be To the Girl in the Pink Fur Coat by Leslie Ricker. I am already tired when my feet hit the floor. I put on the same flannel and corduroy combination I have worn all week. I walk to class in the slush, boots scuffed, hat backwards. You breeze in, shimmering white boots tapping on the linoleum, and your pink fur coat and entourage behind you. There is a lifted feeling to you, life still in your bones, and I feel a little less weary now. told you that applause was going to be hard. Coming up next, we have Rain by Angela Garcia. I keep making up things in my head. My life the way I want it read in a storybook or fairy tale. But when I go back to reality, I know it isn't so, and it will never be. And for some reason, it took so long to occur to me that I can't live a life of wonders. I can't lead a life of fairy tales. Life is full of pain. It's not just sun. There's always rain. Coming up next, we have Airless by Leslie Ricker. I held my breath across a season, airless in a room with small reason, lungs and room affected by my need of oxygen and security. I met some who were walking the same dirt every day, resigned to retreading old clay. I wished for bold, new from old. It gave life its purity. That star over there, that gives me its light, is child of the dead star that gave me my iron. I owe a lot to both. I'll never touch either. But brother, they touch me. And last but not least, I'd like to share with you Me and the Stars by Riley S. Pottenode. One starry night, I took a walk. I found a quiet spot and took a seat. I looked up and all I saw were stars. Shiny, beautiful stars up in a dark-colored sky. I sat there for a long time just in silence, not knowing why I'm here or wondering what my goal of this walk really is. I eventually started talking out loud. I sat there for a long time just talking, and it was only about one thing. I told the stars about you that night. I couldn't stop talking. My goal was eventually reached. You can now clap.
Okay, next up reading, we have Rachel.
Hello everyone. Everybody can hear me okay, right? Okay. I have two pieces for you tonight. The first one is titled Seafarer and is written by an anonymous creative writing member who writes under the pen name Papa D. I have seen the ocean's dark depths. I have seen the rocky shore. Every time I leave the sea, I always ask, what for? The ocean is unfriendly. Oftentimes I cry, for I am all alone out here, just my thoughts and I. Someday when I return home, I will have stories to tell, one for every passing and one for every swell. When I grow old and cannot travel anymore, I will sit down and ponder all that I have explored. The ocean has become a part of me. I know it better than myself. The ocean is merciless, but I cannot live without. And then my second piece is from the Zephyr and titled Footprints by Alyssa Krasinski. Are we all just footprints in the sand? A slight imprint visible for a short time? Until the inevitable tide erases our existence. As the tide rushes in, every wave inching closer and closer, do we simply cave in on ourselves, collapsing bit by bit, grain by grain? Are we noticed by others around us, or are we merely passed by, disregarded as a single footprint among countless others, by those eager to leave their own footprints in the sand before the tide catches them?
Thank you so much, Rachel. Next up, we'll have Aaliyah.
Hello. Thank you once again for coming. I will be reading 3 pieces, all from the Zephyr. First up is A Note to Mother Nature by Riley S. Patinot. I want to be pretty, like nature. Pretty like flowers and butterflies, like tall trees and shortcut grass. The way it makes people so happy. Pretty, like flowers and butterflies. All the wonderful colors and more. The way it makes people so happy is the way I want to feel. All the wonderful colors and more. Makes everyone feel so alive. Is the way I want to feel. And so much fucking more. I want to be pretty, like nature, with the birds singing songs like tall trees and shortcut grass. I want everyone who looks at me to smile. Next up is Daisy by Leslie Ricker. My precious little daisies were all askew. I was sad with the view left by thunder, rain, and heavy wind. They hadn't complained, they hadn't sinned. The simple were making a large statement, being struck down at their height. The neighborhood all welcome night, just to cover the assault. Gardeners knew something powerful was at fault. Did those flowers know that the same nature that abused them made them grow? Hold on, let me find it. And lastly will be Escape by Alyssa D. Krusensky. I feel the need to run sometimes. I daydream of turning onto the highway and stopping only when my soul feels at peace. I picture the wind blowing through my hair and singing along loudly to my favorite songs as I escape the monotony of life. Tell no one that I'm leaving. Let them wonder, what got into her? That's not like her. It's not like me. Maybe that's the point. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Aaliyah. And next we have Lizzie.
Hello. My name's Lizzie, and I have my first piece is a poem called She, They, He, by myself. There is a little girl, alone, on a bench in a playground. She doesn't know who she is yet, nor her place in this world. She watches the other children as they run around. She is not so different from them. She is filled with knowledge and opinions. The girls only play with other girls. The boys only play with other boys. And she wonders why. What is the difference? Where does it begin and end? Why isn't she a boy? Does it even matter? She likes being a girl, really. But sometimes she wonders what it would be like to be a boy. She grows up. The little girl knows more now. And years of being self-sufficient is building up like a winner's podium, but the wood rots from the inside. Does it ever dawn on you, little girl, that weakness is not leaning on others, but instead not being true? Who you are and what you are may not seem important now, but it will bring you inner peace if you can figure out how. Her insides pull apart and push back together, stabbing nerves with 1,000 dull pins. She whispers, "Kill me, save me, make it stop," to an empty classroom. How to relieve it? Will ibuprofen help? Should she rely on the smoke? Or will she be forced to endure until this imaginary knife has finished its terrible journey? Could boys ever feel this way? She watches TV, scrolls through social media, and after 10 years, she will find what her heart has been trying to say all along. It happens at the funniest time, just a casual remark, when someone says how she has grown into such a beautiful young woman. She knows this is wrong. She's not a woman, not in the way they think of it. She is not exactly a boy. He is not exactly a girl. They are all of these things at once. And the little girl looks through their eyes and says, "You must live your truth." This next piece is an excerpt from my short story, One More Job. It's about a museum heist. The main characters have just stolen a priceless ruby and are hiding from the museum guards. "Gwen," I whispered. She quietly shushed me, but I couldn't stay quiet right now. Maybe I was rusty, or I got too used to our domestic life, but this felt all wrong. This side of my love and I, it was something we left in the past as far as we could. Hand in hand, we ran away from the horrors we had to live with. My instinct to run from it all, that was probably what made me crack. I stepped away from the tree, but didn't make it 2 steps before the fallen leaves and dry twigs of old autumn snapped under my shoe. Soon, the light of the guards' flashlights were flying all around us. Gwen cursed and tried to drag me away, but I was frozen, my head blank with fear as the guards came closer. One of them grabbed Gwen, pulling her away from me. Another forced me to the ground, placing the all-too-familiar metal handcuffs on my wrists. The faceless men and women took us by the arms, their grips hard enough to leave bruises, and led us around to the front of the building. Flashing lights shone around the corner. I tried my best to look back, where my love was also being led, but only caught a glimpse of her face before the guards shoved me back around. Her expression was stoic, but I could see the fear in her eyes. I squeezed my eyes shut. It may have been cliché, but those movies sum it up pretty well. They can do whatever they want to me, but not to her. Not while I could still do something about it. I went through every plan I could remember, but my mind was still mostly blank. This calls for some improvising. I closed my eyes and tried to focus, ignoring the noise of sirens and the feeling of handcuffs pressing into my skin. The first thing I had to do was make them stop moving before we reached the parking lot. There are 4 guards, 2 for each of us. They're gripping too tightly for me to get away. My hands are out of use at the moment. That left my feet. Opening my eyes, I could see the guard on my left had the keys to the handcuffs, so I stopped for a second to get them to change the angle of their bodies closer to me. Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Lizzie. Next up, we have our very own Elizabeth.
Hi, everyone. I will be reading 2 pieces tonight. My first piece is from the Zephyr, and it is written by our previous editor-in-chief, Luke Colamy, who is now graduated. It is called A Boy and His Youth. Far away from any other house, deep in the woods, a boy and his mother lived in a cottage near a river. One day, his mother called the boy to her side. "You may play outside by the river today alone," his mother told him. "Alone?" the boy cried out in fright. "Do not fret, my sweet child," she comforted the boy. "I will now tell you what my parents told me when I was young. Remember these words, and you will go far." His mother spoke the words. "The water runs deep, only shadows shed true light, and the stars are much closer than they appear." The boy nodded, but did not understand the meaning of these words. Nonetheless, the boy ran over to the river and knelt by the bank to stare at the clear running water. Out of the rippling surface of the river came a watery, feminine face. "The water runs deep," this face spoke softly. Hands came out of the river, grabbed the boy, and pulled him into the water below. Once he had recovered from the shock, the water nymph danced through the underwater world with the boy, hand in hand. Fish of all color swam around them as the pair dove deeper and deeper into the confines of the river. At last, they came to a breathtaking sunken city with high-reaching towers covered in majestic coral and other aquatic plants that swayed with the current. When their adventure at the bottom of the river was concluded, the water nymph led the boy back to the surface and safely placed him back on dry land. With a playful wave and dive, she descended back into the river. Turning around, the boy found himself in a dark forest, only illuminated by the light of the full moon. He walked through the tall standing trees, completely unaware of where he was or where he was going. Out from behind a tree, a hairy and grotesque monster came upon the boy. He cried out in fear and ran away from the creature, moving farther and farther into the woods. Without looking where he was going, the boy bumped into a handsome gentleman and fell to the ground. The gentleman offered him a helping hand. The boy smiled in appreciation, but paused when the moon's light displayed the gentleman's shadow on a nearby rock. This shadow created the form of a snarling, devilish figure, complete with large horns. "Only shadows shed true light," the gentleman hissed, revealing pointed and jagged teeth. Once more, the boy fled in fear through the maze of trees. This time, he crossed paths with the familiar monster, but the shadow cast by the moon painted a picture that comforted the boy. Displayed on a cliffside was a strong and gentle, angelic figure with a halo and a pair of feathered wings. The monster smiled warmly at the boy, who in turn grew calm. However, this momentary reprieve was interrupted when the snarling gentleman erupted from the bushes. The monster stepped in front of the boy and let out a loud roar. Roar! The devilish man turned and escaped in a fright. "I want to go home," the boy cried out through tears. The monster knelt down next to the boy and placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "The stars are much closer than they appear," the monster told him. The boy stared back in confusion, but before he could decipher the phrase, the monster picked him up and tossed him into the night sky. As an innate reaction, the boy grabbed onto the nearest object, which turned out to be a floating star. Astonished, he gripped tight to the hovering mass of light. The boy waved a heartfelt and gracious goodbye to his newfound friend, while the star rose into the sky and carried him off. From his vantage point high above the ground, he could quite literally gaze upon the entire world. Once the boy's journey through the air had reached its end, his feet touched back down onto solid ground next to the very same riverbank upon which he began his adventure. The mesmerizing scent of a home-cooked meal filled the boy's nostrils, and he ran gleefully back to the warm cottage and his loving mother. My second piece is a poem that I wrote about writing. I want to write a story, something truly me, but when I set out for it, I encounter problems three. My first is where to go and who to show. The world is vast, greater yet are the realms where impossible things amass. There are many beings within me trying to come out. There is the scholar, with always more to learn, the fighter, one who's pure and strong, the lover who will bring light into the dark. The dreamer dreams them all and more, and wants to leave their mark. Number two is what to say, what to do. So much that is important, I can't describe it all, but so many things speak to my soul, whether they be great or small. I'm not quite sure I understand them, yet I try and try to make them come out right. But saying what I mean seems to be a task that is quite beyond me. Problem three, the hardest one, is writing something till it's done. I could live in the worlds I write. I think of them day and night. But forging forward, writing through it, I just can't seem to do it. I don't know why, but I'll continue to try, and I know I'll get there one day. Thank you very much. And next up reading, we have Anjana.
Thank you. Is everyone having a great time tonight? Yay! First up, I'll be reading a piece from the Zephyr. The Bar, Linda Paul Labby. Gulls cross the bar. Something about this place of colored cloud. Mallards paddle the shallows, soon hustling toward some night oasis. Rooftop raven watching the tide. Camp windows to the east catching the last sun's rays, reflecting in purples and pinks. Gulls cross the bar as another one of those irreplaceable days slowly sinks. Staring at the sunset as it flees, leaving its reflections on a silent sea. How I welcome the colors I love. Nature writes the elegy of minds thinking of. My next piece is an original work titled August. Golden rays upon golden grass, a swift river flows through. Gone as soon as it arrived, night lays her elbows on the trees, her mane of stars splayed out around her, watching the lovers below. It was inspired by Taylor Swift, if anyone was wondering. My last piece is a scene from the Ramayana. This is a Hindu epic about the king and queen of Ayodhya, Rama and Sita. And this is a part where they've been exiled to the forest. And the demon king Ravana has sent over a golden deer so that Sita is mesmerized and so he can abduct her to start a war. And this is my retelling of a small scene within that. Please enjoy. The sound of golden anklets echoed through the tranquil forest. Her beauty seemed to shine upon everything she touched. The flowers became more vibrant. The songbird's call became sweeter, and the river sparkled more in the sun. The royal robe she wore, silk woven with gold and embedded with diamonds, dragged upon the dirt, but she did not seem to mind. Her thoughts were consumed by one thing only, a beautiful, elusive golden deer in the distance. Her robes caught a branch, propelling her back. It was as though she snapped from a trance, suddenly aware of her surroundings. Where was the pot of water she had gathered from the river? Where was the basket of flour for her morning prayers? She had gone so deep in the jungle that her humble hut was no longer in view, and the sound of the river was merely a whisper in the wind. One would have ought to be scared, so deep and so alone in the virgin forest, but the golden deer was the only thing that filled her mind. Its gleaming coat, like layers of bronze, filled her eyes. She mimicked its coy smile on her own lips. Her heart ached at the sight of its eyes that seemed tragically human. Calmly, she turned around. She knew her way back to her temporary home, lost as she was, the only way a goddess could. There was only one way the deer could be hers, and as she walked back to her hut, the only thing on her mind was the soft fur of that elusive deer. She soon saw her husband returning from his prayers in the river. He would never refuse her request, and now she just had to be patient. Thank you. Next up, we have Britta.
Hi, today I'm going to be reading 4 original poems of mine. The first poem that I'm reading today is titled Motor Oil. I've been sitting, stewing, in this god-forsaken car since Reagan, since Teletubbies, since butterfly hair clips were cool the first time. The windows are fogged with dust and pollen, the wipers are broken, the air is so hot it feels like warm oil in my lungs. But this no-good, rotten, good-for-nothing car has no functioning air conditioning. My knuckles are bruised from pounding against the windows, but not a single one has cracked. I could scream. But the humid air is so thick that my voice stands still. The doors are locked, the leather seats are searing hot, and the only noise in this goddamn lousy piece of shit car is the echo of my own voice. The worst part of it all, I did it all to myself. I'm the one that got in the car. My second poem is titled Mystery Girl. He told me I'm a hurricane, how I float without a plan, how chaos would follow me close behind. He called me his mystery girl, how he could never figure me out, how it made him want me more. Well, I never asked to be a hurricane, and I never wanted to be a mystery girl, but rain falls like bullets when I speak, so loud that it deafens the people around me. So I stayed his mystery girl. Until my secrets ate me alive inside out, I stayed his mystery girl until it killed me. And he begged for my secrets, until they spilled from my lips like sticky honeydew drool. The mystery girl, no longer a mystery, but he wanted my secrets. He asked for the hurricane. And once he had all I could give, he left me empty, like gentle summer wind. I'm gonna preface this next one. It's a little bit heavy. This next poem is titled 12:26 a.m. I walk in like a homewrecker, demanding, Jesus Christ, will you just listen? I stuffed you full of epinephrine, but no amount of jump start could wake you up. Your blonde hair, brown? No, ginger. Well, it must have been black from all the cigarette ash. Why can't you just listen? I am the hopeful and homeless, dead and shaken and utterly gone. The number of times I called your name, cried and screamed, but you lie dead. Why did you do this to me? To your mother, your father? And don't tell me you had no idea. Don't remind me of my demands, how I'm such a homewrecker, how I cracked your skull open on the sidewalk that one time, and how you've never been quite right since. Do you understand everything I've done to make things right? Of course you don't. You've been gone as long as I've known you. Right, and my next poem, leaving it on a high note here, is called Cantaloupe. My cantaloupe-colored skin reflects in the mirror. I think back to the beginning. It's really not that hard to find between the humidity and time. My memories have been smudged away like black ink on my left hand. It started on my 7th birthday. I walked down the soft wooden stairs of my childhood home, and as my tiny bare feet touch cold tile imported from Italy, I look up. My mother smiles, enjoying her breakfast of black coffee and a cigarette, and she sits up, beginning her chants of happy birthdays. She questions if I feel any different. I ask her why. It was just another day after all. Why would it feel any different from the last? 10 years later, I touch my cantaloupe face and think back as far as my cantaloupe brain can to when I was too small to see my cantaloupe skin in the mirror, to when my mornings were filled with black coffee and cigarettes and walking to school, and the heavy, cold air that covers every cemetery. I remember, and I feel all the same. There's just something different about the air. All right.
Thank you, Britta. Next up, we have Riley.
Hi, I'm Riley. I'm going to be reading 2 pieces for you today, and they're both written by me. The first one is called No Longer a Little Girl. These days, I don't feel like me. I miss the little girl I used to be, who did not care what others thought. She dressed how she was comfortable, and most importantly, she took her wild imagination and ran with it. But then she grew up, and she wasn't a little girl anymore. Words started to hurt. She started dressing how others wanted. Her imagination walked away without her. She was left behind to grow up all alone. Hopefully one day her imagination will find its way back where it belongs. The second piece I'll be reading is called Don't Go Towards the Flame, Go Towards the Moon. You are the dumb moth that keeps leading me to the flame, but I want to follow the butterfly all the way to the moon and never look back. The moth kept telling me it would be fun. I didn't believe him, but I kept following. As I got closer to the moth, I realized he's also on fire. He wasn't glowing, he was burning. I stopped following. He kept trying to convince me to come, but I was tired of his lies and manipulation. All of a sudden, I saw the butterfly. He was sparkling and filled with beautiful colors. I looked at the moth one more time. My eyes started to fill with tears. But I turned around and started following the butterfly. He led me to magical places and made me feel as though I was on top of the world. I never realized how much the moth was dragging me down until the butterfly came and picked me up. Thank you.
Thank you, Riley. Last but not least, we have Babia.
Okay, I will be telling one piece. It's called Conquerors by Alyssa D. Krasinski. In our attempt to conquer all there is to conquer, to push the limits further and further and strive to be better than everyone else, we've created a world for ourselves that we need an escape from. We are bound by the expectations of those around us and live lives that make us miserable. Precious time passes by without a second chance as we busy ourselves with nothing. In our bid to expand our lives, our careers, our knowledge, our power, our presence, our everything, we have become nothing. We have lost ourselves completely.
Hi, I'm Beanie Lowry. I am the president and founder of the Creative Writing Club, and I am currently studying abroad in Morocco, and could not be more thrilled to be here, though I am very disappointed to miss out on our second reading with Zephyr. I'm so proud of my Vice President Anjana and everybody on the Zephyr team for putting this together. I'm sure that it is amazing, and I'm so sad that I can't be there, but I will be watching the live recording, so my heart goes out to all of you who are there, and I would love to be there in person with you. In lieu of that, I would love to share a poem that I wrote while here in Morocco, and it's titled, I Ate for the First Time in Morocco. Green sweet and tender flesh. There's no lust like that for cold fruit on a sun-blazed day. Pomegranates, which held Persephone down, have no light left when compared to the juice-filled first bite of cactus fruit picked fresh in the morning. Thank you so much for coming, and I really hope that you guys enjoyed this event.
Alrighty, this concludes our event. Can we have another round of applause for the readers? I wanted to give a small note that our president, Beanie Lowry, is studying abroad in Morocco, and they have so graciously recorded a video of a piece that is the QR code in your brochure. Please scan it, enjoy their reading. They're incredibly talented.
All right. So yes, thank you again, everybody. The event, yep, we have in the back the brochures that Anjana mentioned, and also copies of Zephyr and some really neat bookmarks. You can take all of those.
They're free. They're free.
Free stuff and free food. Like, you can't get better than that. And before we go, I just want to promote both of our clubs because that's what we do here. So, Creative Writing Club, they're wonderful. Yes, we have such a good time writing pieces, talking about pieces we've written. It's a great place. And also Zephyr, Professor McHugh already mentioned that we're opening up submissions very soon. But also we are looking for members of the editorial board. So if you're a student and you want to look at people's writing and art and help in the process of putting together and publishing that stuff, we would love to have you. There's information about that in the brochure as well under our section. Is there anything else?
No, I guess. Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yes, I just wanted, before we get into questions, I want to give a quick vote of thanks. Thank you for all the readers and writers for being incredibly wonderful. Thank you for the audience for being here. We can't have an event without the audience. A round of applause for yourselves for coming out on a Thursday night. Thank you to all the people who set up. Thank you to Lee for recording this. Thank you to our advisors, Professor Miller and Professor McHugh. Without them, these clubs wouldn't be possible. So another round of applause for them. Congratulations to all the readers. Please, we have bookmarks. Get their signatures. They're cool. They're celebrities now. They did a lot of practice. A lot of rehearsals went into this. And so I'm sure we're all really, really proud of our accomplishments. And I think that is all. If we're going to have a quick Q&A session for everyone, anyone who has questions for the readers, writers, or for Professor McHugh or Professor Miller.
All right, and that is it.
That is
Go
it.
have some hot drinks and some snacks.
Yep.
Have a good night.
Have a great night.